All right, so now we are in the third section of chapter 3, the methodology chapter, and this focuses on the research design and rationale. Now, here we have a lot to focus on, so we're going to break it up by paragraph, okay? We're going to break these workshop videos up by paragraph, okay? So there's going to be a part 1 and then a part 2 and so on and so forth. Because again, we focus on small chunks. We're not focusing on doing large portions, it's just small chunks. All right, so the objective of this section is to state the research design and its connection to the research questions. Describe how the design is consistent with the research designs needed to advance knowledge in the discipline, and explain any time and resource constraints consistent with the design. All right. So we're looking at two things. We're looking at the methods that are used, either qualitative and quantitative, and then we're looking at the actual design of that particular method. So the first paragraph is going to focus on the research method that we are using. So you're going to state, the first sentence, you're going to state the research method that you are using for this study. So if you're using the qualitative method, you state you're using the qualitative method. If you're using the quantitative method, you state you're using the quantitative method. That's the first thing. The second set of sentences are going to focus on defining the characteristics of your research method. Okay? Now, if you don't know what those characteristics are, I suggest that you go get a textbook. I would suggest Cresswell. That's always a good one, or one of the textbooks that you used in your methodology, research methodology class. Okay, grab that textbook, and then look under your design, and then look under the characteristics of that design. Okay, we're going to cover those in the example, but you need to know what those characteristics are. All right. Once you have those characteristics, you only need about maybe 3 or 4. Well, if you can get 4, that's good. No less than 3, but you need at least minimum 3. Once you talk about each of those characteristics, you're going to talk about how your study aligns with those characteristics to make this method appropriate for your study. So let's say, example, the quantitative method. One of the characteristics of the quantitative method is that it uses numbers to measure phenomena, right? It uses numbers to measure phenomena. Well, your study uses surveys that use numbers to measure a particular characteristic that you're observing. So that means that there is an alignment between your study and the method. That's what you're going to talk about, okay? And you're going to keep doing that for all of the characteristics associated with that research method. All right? So you're going to define the characteristics of the research method. Then you're going to indicate that the characteristics of the methodology are aligned with the objectives of your research question, right? So if you're using a survey methodology, then, or you are measuring changes over time, or if you're measuring, changes in, if you're in a biology lab and you're measuring changes in chemical reactions or something, that's numeric. So that's a quantitative methodology. So you just have to show that there is a tie between the characteristics of that methodology and your study, the objectives of your study. And then once you do that, the last thing that you need to do in this paragraph is you need to indicate why the method that you chose is more appropriate than the method you did not choose for your study. And that's going to be easy, because all you're going to say is, well, this was appropriate because the opposite or the alternative method has these characteristics, and those characteristics do not meet the needs or do not align with my study. So you talk about the characteristics of the method you're using, and then to justify not using the other design, you talk about the characteristics of that design. So if you use the quantitative methodology, you talk about the characteristics. You show how those characteristics are aligned with your research study. And then at the end, you talk about the characteristics of the qualitative study, and you show how those characteristics do not align with what you're doing. And then vice versa. If you're using qualitative, you show how the characteristics align with the research. And then at the end, you show how the quantitative characteristics do not align with the objectives of the research. Okay, so that's what you're doing for paragraph number 1. All right, so write that, and then we will go to the next paragraph. So let me just give you an example.